thing I'm supposed to do right now is to chop the onions, peel the potatoes, and prepare the filling. And then I'm going to prepare the dough as well. So I'm just trying to tidy up a little bit. Sorry for the noise. Thanks for joining. Thumbs up. So I'm just going to keep this, and then I have to start the process.
They were getting scrapped.
And that is a wrap.
All right, you guys, happy Thursday. I am so sorry that I've been gone. I promise I'm going to explain everything to you in this episode. We're going to make this episode extra long because I feel like we have to do that. Foremost, I just want to give a special shout out to white people today, because what you guys did with Cracker Barrel It was honestly inspiring. So we're going to briefly discuss what happened there. Before we do, I have to tell you, I am obsessed with the Stanford experiment right now. I know we got you guys a bit of a cliffhanger, but now things have grown increasingly more interesting. So let's jump right back into this. Welcome back to Kids. You know what? It's actually comedian Tim Dillon that's asking the important questions right now, so let's roll a clip.
Does the president of France's wife have a or not?
That's the question. And do you know what I was thinking while I had some time? I was thinking, isn't it interesting that Jean-Michel Trogneux didn't sue me? Like, wouldn't that actually make more legal sense? Because in America, it's virtually impossible to sue a public figure because of the actual malice standard. Like, you have to prove, because they think that public figures, it's a part of the public interest. People are allowed to cover them and ask questions. And you have to meet what's known as the actual malice standard, which I think I've explained in the past, but essentially that this person knew the truth 100%. And acted in reckless regard of it just because they didn't like the individual, they just had malice against them. But if Jean-Michel Trogneux had sued me, that standard would have been removed. Jean-Michel Trogneux could have said, excuse me, this person is saying that I transitioned into my sister and that's not appropriate. And then they would perhaps have a very legitimate claim if they could prove that I knew the truth. But they're not doing that. Jean-Michel Trogneux is not suing me. They're not interested actually in exploring that at all. I wonder why that is. Or maybe Jean-Michel Trogneux is suing me under a new name, Brigitte Macron. And look, I also want to say if there's a tiny piece of me that feels bad for Emmanuel Macron, because I was speaking with somebody and they were asking, why do you think that this sitting president of France actually filed this lawsuit in America? It's completely crazy. And then suddenly it dawned on me, OMG, I think that Brigitte and Emmanuel thought that if they filed this lawsuit, that I would just be a normal person and shut up. Because most people would just be, I'm being sued, let me just shut up for a little bit. But no, that's not how things work in America. They don't understand the cultural differences between America and France. You can't just file a lawsuit to make Americans shut up, right? Noisy is actually our brand. Like, we take pride in not minding our own business. That's who we are. Like, we don't know our forks from our knives. We're not going away, and we are going to figure out what happened to Jean-Michel Trogneux. So guess what I've done? I have actually started the process of emailing them even more questions this week. More questions because I want to get to the bottom of this for the entire world. And we recently left you guys on a cliffhanger, okay? And it's getting interesting. Something actually has me completely seized. I'm obsessed. I'm locked in like nothing else matters. I have my team working on this 24/7. So many of you guys actually pointed out, accurately pointed out rather, that when we introduced you guys the individual that kind of looks like Jean-Michel Trogneux, that was a part of the Stanford prison experiment, to show up in the documentary, that side image, like who is this person? And many of you guys emailed us and said, okay, but Candace, look further into those documents, and prisoner number 2093 that participated in this experiment looks a lot like our missing boy, right? And that looks like Jean-Michel Trogneux. And I have to say, like, initially I put it at a low percentage, but I'm exploring every single lead. I said, okay, I'm do a little light research into this topic. And there's a couple of things I want you to remember as I unpack to you what happens next. Okay, first and foremost, Jean-Michel Trogneux goes missing for like a decade, more than a decade. And we know for a fact a couple of things that he was involved in throughout those recent years, okay? Things I want you to remember. One, Brigitte, my first lady, has already said that she was in the United States and, quote-unquote, experienced the moon landing. Okay, I was there with Archival locked on board. Okay, that's NASA. Remember, that's one. Two, we know that Jean-Michel Trogneux was in engineering school. That's where the photo comes from. That was very difficult for Xavier Broussard to get his hands on. Okay, so there's an engineering angle, there's a NASA angle, and lastly, of course, we know that Jean-Michel Chardin was elected. Military, moon landing, NASA, and it's going to get interesting. So we told you about that random message, obviously, that we got. Hey, there's a Shenanigans lookalike in a documentary that was about a secret prison experiment. It happened in 1971 at Stanford University campus. Okay, that was that photo again. And there were a couple of things that immediately caught my attention. Foremost, why is Rudy making a documentary about the experiment that happened after 1971? Doesn't that seem sort of random? I don't know, to me, like it's a little bit random. So I decided to look into that initially, and the story goes that this Stanford prison experiment got back into the news because a man named Thibault Letexier, who's French, interesting, suddenly became overcome with interest in this prison experiment that happened in 1971. Letexier was a psychologist. He was on a background in psychology. In fact, he had never published a book before. He published this book, which for whatever reason got very popular. He was in business management. That was his background. He had published the author of papers pertaining to business management. So suddenly this guy gets a book deal and he publishes a book to debunk this obscure, I would say for practice, obscure experiment in 1971. And I think now it's important for me to explain to you what the definition is of a limited payout. Okay? This expression of limited payout. Essentially, a limited payout happens when the government wants to prevent citizens from looking into a specific incident or a specific case. They want citizens to really stop asking questions. So what they do is they try to manufacture a tell-all, right? Like an actually will tell you things you've never known before, everything. And the idea here is that the public will think that some random independent person has stepped into the public eye and is telling them everything that they're not supposed to know, so they're kind of being invited into the secret. And oh my gosh, I hear all of this stuff, it's so detailed. I guess me, the person that's a member of the public, I no longer have to look into that matter myself, because thankfully we have this guy to do for us. That's exactly what happened with the Charles Manson murders. Remember, the prosecutor in that case, Vincent Bugliosi, he made a official book, Helter Skelter, and it was a best-selling book at that time. Everyone believes that he was giving them a detailed, never-before-seen account of the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, the how, and they're going to bring up as a book. This time knew everything. Right? That's too much, right? About most things, everything, and it took author and journalist Tom O'Neill writing that book that I wrote about chaos, about the CIA and the secret history of the 60s and such history, and it's really called printed. So just read it. And he wanted to get a book that it was just one big CIA performance, essentially. We still don't really have answers to what happened on that night, and we're not going to get those answers. And we do know that it was one big CIA performance that we all love it because and their goal was to change everything. So I am keenly aware of the hangouts. I never accept someone saying that they're doing an official debunking on something. I need to debunk it myself personally. So anyways, this guy, this French guy, Thibault Letexier, so were those. I have no background in psychology. I only have ever written about business management in the past. He said that he watched a TED Talk in 2013 that Philip Zimbardo, who was the Stanford psychologist, had announced this experiment. And he watched that TED Talk and he just became obsessed with it. And he wanted to at first make a short film about it. For years, that didn't really work. Anyways, here is the book him explaining on that recent Hulu documentary how he got in love with this case. Take a listen.
In the 50 years of the experiment, no one had done ever said before.
Yes.
this money just to do a book deal. Except I know that's not how book deals work. You can't just be a person that's in business management and go to a place and say, hey, look, I have this idea, I'm going to write this book, I've been looking into this case in the background, like, you know, just give me a book publishing deal. That's just not how you have to be somebody to get these deals. Maybe Jordan Peterson saying, oh, this experiment is really important, I'd like to sell a book, and they say yes. Because the publisher's goal is to make money, right? They want to make money. Nobody knows who you are. Why are we discussing this in France? Like, the Stanford experiment from 50 years ago, I'm not sold on this narrative. We'll never know, obviously, anyway, when Texier really does publish this book. He publishes this official debunking. The book is entitled Investigating the Stanford Prison Experiment, History of Lie. And what's interesting is that he publishes this book in March of 2018. That's exactly the time that Emmanuel Macron is inaugurated here to Malice alongside Rudy. Did you not? So I'm like, okay, one point, that's interesting. Like I told you, as I was going through this book and downloading, my interest was further piqued by his acknowledgments page. Traditionally, you are supposed to acknowledge people in your book who helped you to put the book together, and he certainly does that. He thanks the prisoners who contributed to his investigation. He thanks the people that published his book. He thanks the documentary filmmakers. But he also thanks someone that caught my eye that has his last name, Texier. It's a woman named Ramon Texier. And I obviously can't mind my own business, so I was like, who's that? That's your mom? Like, who's that? And right now I'm making an assumption. Maybe there are multiple people who have that exact name. Maybe it's a very popular name for Texier in France. But it appears that Raymond Texier was the former senator in France, a senator in the Socialist Party who worked alongside Emmanuel Macron because he was at first, before he started his own party in large, he was a member and a minister in the Socialist Party, remember? But again, that could be a coincidence. Maybe Ramon Texier helped me in a different way. We're not sure. I'm allowed to answer questions. But again, it was enough to keep me looking into the story. The documentary then becomes interesting because why did we set this up? It seems obscure. It seems irrelevant. There's nothing happening right now that people are going back and looking at this experiment. So not only did he get this book deal, but then there's a young woman who comes to him and says, hey, like I want to turn it into a documentary, and that person's name is Juliette Eisner. So I'm looking into Juliette, and she gave this interview, and she says, I speak French, like I'm French. And I'm going, okay, what? The American girl is French, what's happening here? And I start looking into her, and curiously that she even did this, by the way, the Google documentary is just not good. And prior to that, the only time that she had directed a documentary was like 10 years ago, and it was called Lil Bub and Friends, and it was about cats. social media. So I learned like that's probably, they probably connected somehow. I learned her mother is very French. She's from a very wealthy family in France. Her mother's surname is Portial, spelled Courtial. And honestly, it could be another coincidence, but there's a guy named Edward Portial who is the current senator of that same department, the OC department, that the Ramon Letexia woman was senating. So I'm like, okay. Edward Portial, by the way, so you just want to triple check that picture to make sure that's the right guy. I haven't seen the bottom of him. Okay, he's aged, okay. Different from this plot, different from Wikipedia. There we go, wow. You can really just catfish anybody, right? Anyways, it was enough to make me go, okay, why is France suddenly interested in this experience? Why is this girl, Juliette Eisner, suddenly interested in it? Like I said, her background is in Cats of Instagram. That was the last documentary that she had directed about famous cats. And it's like naked nepotism, right? So just clearly, like, you did this documentary and got this deal with Hulu because of who you know, not because of any talent that you have. And I get locked in. Reading through the Texia's book, and I noticed something that I would describe as a very big lie by omission. The Texia is describing the prisoners in this experiment. The idea is that this guy, Philip Zimbardo, just put an ad in the newspaper and said he was looking for college-age students, undergrads, graduates, whatever, to sign up for this experiment, and he locks them a week later into a basement, and he determines that even after 48 hours, the prisoners are all crazy, and it shows that we are intrinsically evil, right, and people will do crazy things just because they're amongst a crowd of other people who are doing crazy things. Letexia describes the prisoners, the prisoners that were selected for this experiment, in a really weird way. Plus, the documentary also describes them in this way, like they're a bunch of middle-class college kid nobodies who signed up for this experiment that was funded by the Naval Research Center. Specifically, Letexia writes this, okay? He says there's no need to multiply portraits to understand that the participants are not interchangeable, right? And that the lines that intersect in Zimbardo's prison follow distinct trajectories. Each one that has his sensitivity, his family, his past, his beliefs, his values, his studies, his certainties, his dreams, and his expected future. Some are shy, others are extroverted. Some are 18, others are 25. They have nothing in common, right? We don't need to look any further. I don't know. But for me personally, I felt like when he said there's no need to multiply the portraits of the prisoners, I felt like I needed to multiply the portraits. I needed to look into the background of all these prisoners. And what I discovered, again, was this lie by omission that was happening from the author. The prisoners, it turns out, we forgot to mention this, were all specifically linked to engineering. They were also very specifically linked to the military, and in most cases, oddly, they were linked to NASA. NASA plus engineering plus the military. And no, these were not just some random students that were floating through the wind and needed some money, okay? It's difficult for me to underscore how dishonest that narrative is, and I'm going to do it by showing you a part of this Hulu documentary, okay? One of the guards was a man named Chuck Burton. You're going to see him at the end of this clip. These are all of the participants, or a few of the participants, describing their background and why they signed up. Take a listen to this documentary before I reveal to you who Chuck Burton really is. Take a listen.
I saw an ad in the newspaper that they were doing a prison experiment and that they were paying $15 a day. Wasn't that bad for minimum wage type work?
It was $15 a day and 3 meals a week in a padded bed. And I thought, I've just arrived.
That sounded good for me. I didn't have any money.
That sounds good to me. I didn't have any money, Chuck Burton said. Elsewhere, he describes how he was just backpacking, just like a hitchhiker, and sometimes he would do some accounting. Do we have that clip of him speaking about his accounting, Skylar? about, because we watched the documentary about how, like, when he ran out of money as he was backpacking, he would then, do a little bit of accounting to make some money, and then back to backpacking. Not just your average guy who needs some cash. The truth actually is Chuck Burton is descendant of the Rothschilds. What? Are you kidding me? His father was Otto Herstadt of Herstadt Bank. His mother was born in Germany and descended of the Rothschilds. And the reason why he's traveling all over is just, as his mother expresses, that's what they did because they had tortured an unbelievable amount of wealth, as you'd expect and anticipate from the Rothschild descendants. I mean, literally, Otto Herstadt owns Sears, partially. Sears, the company that was so big. It is insane that this person is representing himself as somebody who was broke in college. But there's more, it's not just him. Well, I take a look at the spreadsheet that I put together. Again, I was interested in going, okay, once I saw the pattern emerging of engineering and NASA and the military affiliation, and I'm not talking oh, my dad served in the military during World War II. I am talking the top of the military. Okay, people that should have naturally been, if you were trying to make this a real experiment, the first thing that Letexia should have debunked was the idea that the results mattered because, well, if it's funded by the military and you pick a bunch of wealthy military kids, it probably, the results might be a bit tainted as well. There might not be any control in this experiment. Doug Corby, his father was Peter Corba, who was the head of nuclear power and atomic energy at Bechtel, the Bechtel Corp, the military corporation. His father was also a member of the National Society of Professional Engineers. Clay Ramsey, it turns out he was a Marine who was working on a merchant ship in particular, which we're trying to prod further because the Ramsey last name is very popular. I will get to the bottom of it. There's Richard Yacco. His father was Samuel Yacco. Sam Yacco was in the U.S. Navy, naval research, and worked for NASA. His father was a NASA engineer. Richard produced and directed commercials for NASA. Glenn Gee, the last name was way too popular, but we at least knew that he graduated from Stanford University with a degree in chemical engineering. A year before this experiment, I would bet whoever his father is, he had some connection to NASA. Paul Baran worked for Halliburton. We're still confirming this, but it's likely that his father is also Paul Baran, who was the electrical engineer that worked for the Rand Corporation. Stuart Levin worked for Halliburton under the Energy Services and Standard Oil as a geophysicist. He also graduated from Stanford. We're trying to confirm, because Levin is a very popular last name, who exactly his father was. We have an idea. Jim Roney's father is Captain James Roney of the Moffett Naval Air Base. Oh, could this be a conflict? If the Navy is funding this experiment to have Captain James Roney of Moffett Naval Air Base's son participating in the results of this experiment. His father was also the commander of the ship that recovered the Apollo 8. Again, this weird NASA thing. His father was a naval aeronautical engineer who was the director of science and engineering at the Naval Academy. Conflict much. We're still working on this spreadsheet. Now, if you could scroll down here, we've got David Eshelman, because we have the guards here. David Eshelman, his father worked as an electrical technician in the Navy, and then his father went to go work for NASA. His father worked for NASA on all of the Apollo missions. He was a professor at Stanford during the time of the experiment, and he founded the Stanford Department of Radar Astronomy. He was also an engineer. He oversaw radio experiments between the Stanford dish and the Pioneer 6 through 9 space probes. John Mark, we are still looking into, obviously public last name, but he worked for Kaiser Permanente and graduated from Stanford University, and his father was a professor at Stanford University. We also know that John Mark spent a year in France leading up to this experiment, so that's interesting. Carl von Borsel, his father is William von Borsel, who served in World War II as a Coast Guard in Okinawa, and then worked for Lockheed. announced Lockheed Martin like Lockheed the rest of his career, and his father, of course, worked in the aerospace industry for Hughes Aircraft because, like I said, there was this strange NASA thing that's happening. I told you guys about Chuck. That is wild that he presented himself as broke and completely crazy. We're still going through these guards. Craig Haney was in the Air Force. His father was Alan Haney, who was a Marine of the USS Iowa. He carried FDR to Algeria. We believe that was the mission that he was on. So, what's happening here? What's happening here that we are hitting these themes in this experiment that French people are very interested in debunking at this moment? There's nothing to see here, you guys. We've looked through everything. Here's what else, right? Curiously, the only prisoner whose identity has not been revealed is prisoner number 2093. It's the only prisoner. We don't know who that is. We have no idea what that person's name is. This person is given two different pseudonyms. First Tom Thompson, then Tom Williams. I need to know who that individual is. We can actually show you a clip of this individual, Skylar, from the Stanford archives that are available online. Take a look at this, it's super brainy.
You come over there. Act it out. You be the Brian Frankenstein, and you be Frankenstein. I want you to walk over here like Frankenstein and say that you love food and food. Frankenstein, man. I'm walk like Frankenstein. You have to walk like you. Get up, Lord. Get up, Lord. You're not going out there.
Big and gay. The entire experiment, I am telling you, the more that I've read about it, it is completely crazy that they were allowed to do this, and for whatever reason, they're moving on to this one prisoner, Tuesday night. We can't tell you anything about him. We're citing privacy. But every other prisoner we can tell you all about. Just not 2093. I must know who is this. And you guys, I'm sorry to tell you this. It's not just the experiment that's making gay. So was the moon landing. You might not be ready for that. I'm sorry, you guys. It's all one big drama club performance, and there are reasons for these performances done at this magnitude. When I think of drama, and I think of military, and I think of engineering, and I think of NASA, I know that I cannot rest until I figure out who's prisoners. Maybe we find out it's not. Jean-Michel Truck now. Happy to find out it's not. But I think we know Brigitte was here in 1969. And yeah, it's just getting very, very interesting. And I am like a dog with a bone. I will not let this go. We cannot trust people until we get more answers. Okay, she will take a brief ride of course right now, so I can read that. But after that, absolutely amazing. First and foremost, remind you guys about Gold Co. According to reports, Fed Chair Jerome Powell has just fueled hopes for a rate cut. And of course, the price of gold moved higher. Over the years, we've all seen some tough times. We've had skyrocketing inflation, surging national debt, market volatility, and never-ending wars. Gold is real, it's tangible, and it's held value for thousands of years. Unlike the stock market or currency, gold doesn't vanish when politicians make bad decisions, which, let's be honest, it's not a lot these days, and that's exactly why all gold partners with the award-winning company Gold Co. They sell precious metals like gold and silver, and they do an amazing job with it. So whether you're worried about inflation, government spending, or just want peace of mind, Gold Co can make it easy. Here's what you need to do. You need to visit CandiceLikesGold.com to get your free 2025 gold and silver kit and learn about how you can get up to 10% in free silver. Do not wait for the next crisis. Protect your future today. Call 855-815-GOLD or visit CandiceLikesGold.com. Again, that's CandiceLikesGold.com. Also remind you guys about dose because millions in my house, major hurricanes, so many things to do, and somehow I still try to show up and do my best. That's why I like to start my day with Dose. Dose is a powerful all-in-one wellness shop that helps support gut health, immunity, energy, and all the stuff that really matters when you don't have time to slow down. And let's be honest, when you've got a big and busy family, slowing down is not really an option. It takes me literally 5 seconds in the morning, and I feel the difference all day long. Their best seller is Dose for your liver, which was formulated to cleanse huge deliverer of unwanted elements in digestion and maintaining your body's temperature. Doses clinical results showed lowering liver enzyme levels by 50% in most of their participants. One dose per dose per litter. It's equivalent to 17 grams of medicine. There's a gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, vegan, sticky toast, and you will feel better benefits over time on energy, better digestion, reduce bloating, healthier moving, enzyme function, reduction, brain fog, and better sleep. Right now, you will save 30% off on your first month subscription and go to dosedaily.co/Candace or by entering code Candace at checkout. That's dosedaily.co/Candace or by using code Candace for 30% off your first month subscription. Lastly, guys, I'm going to talk about Paleo Valley because something that my team and I are always craving our beef sticks, specifically the ones from my friends at Paleo Valley. Paleo Valley makes their meat sticks with 100% grass-fed beef sourced from small-scale regenerative American farms so that you can feel good about what you're eating and what you're supporting. They've stripped out all the junk. There's no preservatives. There is no gluten, soy. There's no sugar, dairy, or GMOs. Just clean, nutrient-dense fuel, the way that food was actually meant to be. So whether you're road tripping, working late, or running around with the kids, these sticks deliver high-protein energy without the crash. Whether you're keto, paleo, carnivore, it does not matter. Paleo Valley works with your lifestyle, not against sticks. They come in multiple bold flavors: original, jalapeno, summer sausage, maple bacon, and teriyaki. So there really is something for everyone. With over 55 million beef sticks sold, Paleo Valley is trusted, proven, backed by a 60-day money-back guarantee. Right now, you get 20% off your first order by visiting paleovalley.com/Candace with code Candace. That's paleovalley.com/Candace, promo code Candace. All right, guys, here is where we are at right now. We need Cracker Barrel energy. Okay, that's the new term. That's the new move. Cracker Barrel energy worldwide. Email tips@CandaceOwens.com. You were at Stanford, you saw something, and by the way, there are some people who graduated Stanford that are telling me some things. I'm going to share them. But first, for my overseas audience that isn't really tracking what I mean when I say Cracker Barrel energy, I'll very quickly run you through what happened. Essentially, there is this restaurant chain. It's called Cracker Barrel. It's been around since 1969. It was actually started right here in the great state of Tennessee. I would say it was started in Lebanon, Tennessee. Savannah would pass away and tell me it's Lebanon, Tennessee. So there's room for debate there. Anyways, right here in the South of America, and recently their corporate headquarters announced that they were going a little bit woke. They were going to ditch certain menu items that sounded, I guess, a little bit too southern, and they were going to change the inside of the store, making everything super political looking, plus they were going to change the logo. Here on the left is the Cracker Barrel logo that it was forever, since 1969. You can see there's an old man, and there is a barrel, and there is a cracker. On the right is what corporate said they were doing. Corporate said, we're going to get rid of all of that. There will be no human beings. And all I can tell you is the white people rioted. I was on Instagram cracking up, enjoying, applauding. They would not let it go. They said, oh no, put that old man back, or we're not going Cracker Barrel anymore, okay? And celebrities got involved. Brittany Aldean and Jason Aldean, the country singer, they were posted up on Instagram. A photo of that. Brittany wrote, I love this girl. Breakfast date this morning. We would be at Cracker Barrel, but y'all been acting a fool. Students from Alabama, and they were, like I said, they didn't care. Sal said, we're not moving, we're done, okay? The result is that their sales took a complete hit, okay? I think they lost $100 million in one week. $100 million just wiped from the market. And they gave in. Dr. Merrill said, okay, we messed up. We are going to return the logo. They wrote this on Instagram. We thank our guests for sharing your voices and your love for Cracker Barrel. We said we would listen, and we have. Our new logo is going away, and our old timer will remain. At Cracker Barrel, it's always been, always will be about serving up delicious food, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Let me tell you why this actually matters. This was not something that was obscure, and is a part of a larger conversation that you actually is going to have tomorrow about what they are doing. It is a spiritual attack on the idea of ancestry. Nothing can be old, everything must be new. They want everybody to look the same. There will be no personality in anything. They will turn us into aemonvuons. That is actually the explicit goal. You may not realize that. Actually, watching this podcast, you probably do realize that. But they don't ever want you to think that you have ancestry. Even the way they're making homes, it's ugly. Everything is ugly, and there's a reason for that. They don't want you to think that structures have existed. They want you to think that you're just going through the wind and nothing matters. Your family doesn't matter, ancestry doesn't matter. Everything yesterday is gone. You're living in an ever-present. And so it was actually important for people to stand up and say, you know what? It's been a year. Okay? It's actually been a year of some BS. We are not recovered at all, and we will not let go of Jeffrey Epstein's files. You're gaslighting us. We hate you, government. We're not stupid. We understand that you elites are creating this plantation of sameness. We understand that you're making our kids dumb intentionally. We're getting rid of AP classes. There'll be no honors classes. No test scores. We're not even going to track how dumb we're making your kids anymore. We're aware. We are tuned into what you are doing and how much you hate us. And we want you to know we hate you back, okay? We hate you back. We are going to keep that same energy and tell you that you're not going to get our business and you're not going to let us away. And of course, there has always been this target. They want everyone to believe everything can be multicultural and you shouldn't think about it and you're backwards and you're racist if you want to see an old white man or something. And I genuinely was applauding that white people said no. And they made corporate bend the knee. And we all need to keep that energy when it comes. We need to stay focused, and we need to just say, we're not going to tolerate this. This is a no from all of us. We are aware that perverts are running the world. That's reality, okay? That is reality. Perverts are running the world, and we're not going to let it go. I want to introduce you guys now appropriately to Me Not Letting Things Go Ever. Still obsessed with the Stanford experiment. Another interesting lead that came from a Stanford student. They said, hey, I don't know if you know this, but as a former Stanford student, I knew that we could access news archives to see what was published in like the Stanford newspaper at that time in the 70s. And again, this could be nothing, but I'm going to chase down and debunk everything. What they found in the archives was that there was a graduate student named Jean-Michel that was a member of the French Club, and also Bechtel, like the military institute. And I'm going to read you what they found in the Stanford archive. Again, this is from the 70s. You can see they're talking about the Steel Day festivities, and they mention Jean-Michel, a graduate school of business student from France, exhilarated the audience with popular folk tunes from Georges Brassens, one of the most celebrated French folk singers. Okay, so we have a Jean-Michel who's a graduate school student that is performing on the quad, and he also gets another mention in another Stanford Archive clip. I don't know if you had that. I mean, Stanford Archive newspaper. It says French Students Association, Bechtel International Center, and that is like military corps Bechtel. And Jean-Michel will sing all the most successful songs of Georges Brassens. It sounds like Jean-Michel, this graduate student, was into a bit of theater. So I'm interested. I'm interested because we looked through the graduation logs you know, you can say you graduated, and there is not a Jean-Michel that graduated from Stanford University that we could find. Maybe he dropped out, I don't know. But we have to put that out there in case you guys can find something that we cannot. Maybe you saw the Jean-Michel that was performing for the Still Day on the quad. Maybe you weren't there. You're like, oh, do you remember that Jean-Michel? Let me send you a link. Please email us. Please email us whatever you can find. Tips at CandiceOwens.com. Tips at CandiceOwens.com, you guys. We are all going to figure this thing out. And Tim Dillon, a comedian, American comedian who has been unnecessarily featured in this lawsuit, realizes the importance of figuring this thing out. He realizes that we are all in this thing in a rather hilarious segment speaking about his honorable mention. Here's what he had to say. Take a listen.
The president of France's wife is suing Candace Owens, who said she was a man, and I'm mentioned in that lawsuit. And that's actually, because you start this business, you don't know where it's going to go. I didn't know where it was going to go when I started it. And that's what I'll tell people out there that are young and are walking down an uncertain path to this moment in their life where they realize it's all actually worth it. There's a lot of people that are going, am I on the right path? Are the sacrifices worth it? And the answer is yes. Because I'm sitting before you today named in a lawsuit. The president of France's wife may or may not have a... We're all going to court to figure this out. We're going to court
We're all
to
going.
figure out whether the president of France's wife has it. We don't know. We don't know. No one knows. And I'm mentioned in that lawsuit because I helped further the conversation. And that, to me, is something special. Is it a big movie? Who can't know? But what? No. Who's doing that? What we're doing is advancing an important conversation in this uncertain. Does the president of France's wife have a or not?
I have to put Tim Dillon under oath, obviously. That has to happen. We have to do that for the culture. We have to ask him explicit questions about why he invited me onto his podcast, what he knows. Potentially, maybe he was working with Vladimir Putin. Of course, there could be a Russian angle there. Tim Dillon does look like he could maybe be friends with Vladimir Putin. I think that's subjective. And it's going to get fun. And I'm actually so excited because I have the power of subpoena. Like, you know, that means the reason that you can do, hey, you don't get to say, for privacy reasons, we're not telling you who prisoner 2093 is. If there was something exculpatory here, you gotta give it to me. I'm sorry, Stanford. I'm excited about figuring out who prisoner 2093 is. And we all know where this is going to lead, by the way. It's not just Tim Dillon. It's also Cardi B. Cardi B, the rapper, you may have seen this clip going around. It is hilarious. We don't even actually need the appropriate context, okay? Cardi B, the rapper, had to testify recently in a court case that was brought against her. And I'm listening to what she is saying as she is being questioned about certain things, and I realized that this could actually be me answering questions about how I got involved in the Brigitte Pro case. Let's roll the clip.
I don't think I was like on a high level of angry. I was more on a high level of concern. Very concerned.
Me too.
Why were you?
Because I'm pregnant and this girl is about to beat my ass. Hello?
Hello.
Hello, I'm here. You say she's bigger? Is that correct?
Absolutely.
How do you know that?
I mean, look.
I'm looking. I can agree with you. What is your basis? Are you saying she's physically bigger? She's taller?
I mean, you have her medical records,
I don't
right?
have anything. I'm not asking you this.
I mean, I was 130 pounds at that time.
So she's overweight, right? In your opinion.
Objection, no, it's nothing.
So, well,
You don't even.
Look, when they ask me how I got involved, I'm gonna be like, look, I was pregnant. I would say a little bit concerned about this story, 14-year-old, and a 40-year-old teacher, and then when they say, how do you know she's a man? We'll be like, You know, eyes here. Obviously, something's going on. Anyways, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be fantastic. Welcome to America. It's a culture you don't understand. Okay, you only make us more interested. It's Cracker Barrel Energy. You're not letting this one go. We see you, perverts. I can't wait until next week so we start unpacking the new Becoming Brigitte series. We're finally ready to do that. Okay, let's take another break quickly here, and then I'm gonna tell you guys where I have been and why I had to take some personal time. Foremost, when was the last time that you bragged about your wireless company? Like, did you know my wireless company gave away 1,000 American flags to deserving vets, forgave $10 million in veteran debt, and my wireless company also raised almost $500,000 to prevent veteran suicide? In other words, when your wireless company is Pure Talk, there's a whole lot to brag about. You can even brag about the coverage that you get with Pure Talk. They are a 5G network that is insanely fast, dependable, it's secure. You can definitely brag about how much money you save with Pure Talk. Unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data is just $25 a month, saving the average family over $1,000 a year. It's time to make that switch to my wireless company, Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Owens and save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Owens to make the switch today. Also reminding you guys about 7 Weeks Coffee, because you already drink coffee, you might as well do a good thing. It's America's pro-life coffee company on a mission to fund the pro-life movement one cup of coffee at a time. And they just hit an amazing milestone. Over $1 million donated to the pro-life movement. Why are they called 7 Weeks Coffee? Because at 7 weeks, a baby is the size of a coffee bean. And it's also the same time a heartbeat is clearly detected on an ultrasound. That's why they donate 10% of every sale to support pregnancy care centers across all 50 states, providing life-saving ultrasounds, resources for moms in need, and real hope for families. And it all started with one simple idea: using your morning cup of coffee to stand for life. 7 Weeks Coffee is more than a great tasting coffee. It's mold-free, pesticide-free, shade-grown, low-acid, and it's organically farmed, so it checks all the boxes. You can go ahead and head to 7weekscoffee.com and you'll save 15% forever if you subscribe. Plus, you'll get a free gift. And exclusively for my listeners, if you use code Candace at checkout, you'll get an extra 10% off your first order. Total of 25% total savings there, right on your first order, plus a free gift. Remember, your order will go directly to help support a network of over 1,000 pro-life organizations across the U.S., so visit 7weekscoffee.com and promo code Candace today. And reminding you guys about American financing, because if you've been living on credit cards just to cover groceries, gas, and bills, you know those interest rates are brutal. Why keep paying 20% or more to the banks when you could call my friends at American Financing? They have mortgage rates that are in the 5s right now, and they're showing people every day how to keep more of their hard-earned money in their pocket and out of the hands of credit card companies. Right now, American Financing is helping homeowners save an average of $800 a month by using their home equity to wipe out high-interest debt. And there's no upfront fees, there's no obligation, it's just a 10-minute call to a salary-based mortgage consultant. And the kicker is that if you start today, you could delay 2 mortgage payments, putting even more cash in your hands right away. So do not wait. Call American Financing now. The number is 800-795-1210. Again, that's 800-795-1210, or you can visit AmericanFinancing.net/Owens. That's AmericanFinancing.net/Owens.
The bad guys too. Buy your rent
I hope these expenses are in policy.
These expenses are not within policy.
Greetings, hello. So I'm kneading the dough, and I'm going to need a bit more flour to put on this because it's a bit sticky, so I need more flour, to be honest. And I'm gonna get some now. Well, hello ladies and gents, happy Saturday. How you guys doing? Are you fine? Are you cooking as well? What are you guys cooking? Are you enjoying this? Have you ever tried Nigerian meat pie? No, I'm not.
Since forever, we've hated Mondays.
Are you American? I'm not actually.
It doesn't have to be like this. In Judaism, Monday had ham.
So I'm just give me a sec, guys. Give me a second. I need to get some more flour.
Okay, now where I was. I always want to be extremely honest with you guys about everything that is happening in my life, as much as I can tell you everything that's happening in my life. And there is kind of the broader point that, you take your kids to school, back to school, drop your kids off, and And kind of moms are posting themselves and just how upset they are with doing it, that something feels wrong. There is, and that is very real the first time that you drop your kids off at school. And the Catholic school shooting that happened last week, again, we had another trans shooter. It really impacted me. It felt very close to home as obviously as a Catholic. Also in Tennessee, we had the trans shooting that happened in Nashville, which was just a few blocks away from me. And so it started to feel like it's getting close to home. And day in and day out, I am covering what's happening in the dark parts of the world. We're talking about that too. We're talking about the Emmanuel Macron happening. We're talking about the evil perverts in this world. And that kind of, I would say, earth-shattering moment where our government looked at us and tried to gaslight us about someone like Epstein, someone who admitted to the fact that he was sexually abusing minors. I mean, think about how crazy that is when government just doesn't matter, keep it moving. It signals that the perverts are in control. And when you're reading this stuff day in and day out, like I do, and you understand how vicious, how violent, how intentional, how dishonest our government is, and you're not sure if everyone else has gotten there, it can be really overwhelming. I felt very overwhelmed with that shooting, and I just needed to sort of take a second, pause, and feel like I was doing everything to guarantee that my kids were okay. And it was one of these stunning conversations where I was speaking to someone at the school. I have always had the intention to homeschool, but there's all these programs during the day for toddlers. And I was speaking to somebody at the school about safety protocols, and I had that moment happen where they kind of look at you like, what we're doing for safety is kind of not really your business, and these are kind of our kids. When you get that feeling from a school where you're just sort of like, wait, is this my kid or is this your kid? And I just don't want to give into that. I don't want to accept that the way that we are doing things is okay. It took radicals in government to sort of create this virtual plantation that we are on today. They were radical, there's no question, and a lot of them were theater kids and protest and acting a part of things that give more power to the government. And you see that in terms of this shooter. I think I published something and I'm going, guys, look into MK Ultra. Every shooter is exactly like the last shooter. Okay, this is not about whether you're a Democrat or whether you're a Republican. You just have to wake up and recognize that it is literally us versus them. Their idea is to shrink the plantation, for there to be less slaves. They will use movements like glorious feminism, take birth control, go to work like men. And then you learn that that woman was a CIA plant and she was being funded by the CIA. They will use movements to get you to agree to do things that ultimately harm you in the end. And I don't blame people, by the way, who are new to understanding that, because I was there too. We all went through the same public school system. We are all learning together just how evil the system is and just how, again, intentional that system has been made for us, this matrix that they have created. But I do think it's time for us to be equally as radical in saying, you know what, everything the government has done has actually been unacceptable. None of this makes any sense. Why are you telling me that if I don't put my kids into school, I can go to prison, but also that, there's no answer for why kids are getting dumber and dumber and dumber since the establishment of the Department of Education, the federal education system. You read books like I read Thomas Sowell Inside the American Education System, and you will never unsee it, that it was really modeled by the Soviets, that we are going to essentially program your children, and we want your children to be overtly sexualized. And
One thing I don't want is, I don't want this to be overly, I don't really want it crunchy, so I'm going to make it a bit light, if you get what I mean by doing this. So yeah, so to get the shape.
Absolutely not accept the way that things are. And I also just wanted to make sure that my kids were okay, just really needing to think about, are my children okay? Am I doing everything that I can to make sure that they are secure? And I just need to take a pause, And on top of that, I got really sick. That's why you can kind of hear my voice. And so it was kind of the time where I felt spiritually sick about things that were happening in the world, but also I was physically sick. And I never want to come onto this platform and despair. You know, I never want anybody to feel like we can't make a difference. We actually can. There's some amazing news out of Florida. I think they are considering wiping away all vaccine mandates for kids. And yeah, that's a win, but I want you to know that is a win because parents are saying no to vaccines. And parents are saying, why do you not also get to access my child's mind, but arbitrarily access my children's bodies because you're the government and we somehow signed up for that and that was made okay and that doesn't make any sense. And what the government actually fears is what's happening right now, which is so many parents are homeschooling and saying, yeah, no, we're not doing that. And we don't want to end up like Germany where you're not allowed to homeschool. I got an email from someone saying that in Germany you are literally not allowed to homeschool, which means that prison is permanent in Germany. They can just arrest you if you try to homeschool your children. So we have a short runway to make sure we don't end up that way, right? That we don't end up like Germany is without free speech. We go to prison for questioning the World War II narrative. You also have to hand over your children and your children's bodies to the government and the states. We have to be the generation of radical parents that undoes everything that the government did, especially throughout the 60s. I think they really were spiking the ball in the 60s and the 70s. And part of that is just through true education and showing up and telling our kids what's real and what's not real, being hawks, not allowing them to gaslight us to think that we don't have the right to ask questions about our children and what they're learning or what safety measures are being employed when they hire people. How does a Jeffrey Epstein get into a private school with no background in teaching and being an overt pervert? Like, that's very scary to think about. And so, yeah, I just wanted to take a pause and come back feeling a bit refreshed and optimistic because we should be optimistic. We are seeing the results, sort of the fruits of our intellectual labor everywhere. And so, major win for parents, by the way, on the amount of parents that have taken their kids out of schools and are homeschooling them and realizing that that has always been what has made sense. Like, we are the parents. Okay, I'm going to get into some of your guys' comments. First, want to tell you that we are getting into the birth control industrial complex right now. It is available, the first episode, for free on CandiceOwens.com. I wanted you guys to see that because I think that will really help you understand how much your government hates you. They're just poisoning us. They're poisoning your kids. They've been poisoning us for a long time. And when I learned the history of birth control, I was quite stunned. And this is somebody, I was pro-choice. I was very pro-birth control, thinking people should take it. I kind of always felt weird that they were trying to sell it to me, but I definitely did not think there was anything wrong with other women taking it. And then I learned the history of birth control, and I went, oh, okay, that's just more of our government hating us and wanting to make sure that we don't procreate, and that they will eventually control that you will have to come to them and they'll control IVF clinics and things of that nature. We have to get educated ourselves, again, if we are going to reverse engineer things, so to speak. So that A Shot in the Dark episode 23 is available for free at CandiceOwens.com. Maybe next week we'll also publish it onto YouTube because the facts are shocking. All right, let's see what you guys are thinking. Probably a lot that you're thinking. Don't forget, anything. Find the Jean-Michel that was in the 70s in Stanford. We cannot find him on graduation docs. Anything that you may know, maybe you saw the Jean-Michel performing on the quad. Tips at CandiceOwens.com. John Diamond, wow. Thank you so much for that donation. He writes, we missed you so much, but every time I thought about missing you, number 1, I really want you to have time with your beloved family. Number 2, girl is powering up for more war. Number 3, everything is speaking gay, but God is in charge and Candice is on point. That is such a great summation. Yeah, you plug into your family and you realize what actually matters, and what matters at the end of the day is we need to be radical when it comes to defending our families, especially the children, especially the children. Marcy writes, welcome back, Candice, we missed you. Don't worry, you were not that late and gay to the stream. Thank you so much. I think we were only a couple of minutes late. I've also been dealing with this, like I said, this strange cold that's going around. I feel like illnesses also have transformed. Like, whatever, they just I now refer to it as our, regular dosing of poison from the government. like weird symptoms we didn't have when we were kids, you know, like, oh, I can't taste anything, or I feel like I'm on a plane for 6 days, and I'm like, okay, they're just dropping the latest thing, you know, sending out the latest mosquitoes type of a thing. Cheryl Wells writes, oh my god, I've been going through cannabis withdrawals. I am so glad you're back. Me too, I am so glad that I am back. Tui writes, I'm watching live on the phone, the iPad, and the TV. Much support from Brisbane. In my eyes, you're a living legend. The Tongans of the Polynesia send their love. Please say hey. If you can, I am a fan. Okay, well, to the Tongans of Polynesia, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate the support all over the world. I saw also a clip of Tucker Carlson speaking about how he was walking in Norway, and one of my fans said, tell Candace that I love her. And so to whoever that fan was in Norway, I love you back. That is actually amazing that you went up to Tucker Carlson and you said that. It means so much to me. The support around the world is why we keep doing this thing. And you guys, like when I was really feeling like, wow, I feel really upset about the fact that they've been getting away with this for so long. I'm always so picked up. Like when I saw you guys posting, my director was getting messages, my producer, Savannah. I can't tell you guys how much that just completely brightens me. And sometimes we all just need that. Like, we need to remember that, like, there are such good people in the world. Like, they are the minority. They know they are the minority, the evil people. The good people are the majority. That experiment obviously was a complete act to justify those sadistic perverts doing whatever they want to do around the world. The Stanford prison experiment, but the majority of people are actually intrinsically good, or not intrinsically evil. And I know goodness wins in the end. Black writes, Candace, how dare you make us wait for more than a week in the dark? Now tell us sorry and that you love us. I'm glad to see you back. I am very sorry and I love you very much. To be clear, very much. Luke Castley writes, you were the most wanted woman these last 2 days. Thank God you're okay. We are so happy to have you back on. Yes, I'm okay. I am alive. Tomorrow, I think we're dropping a really important interview. I had months ago reached out to Milo Yiannopoulos. We had him on quickly because of things that were happening in the moment a few weeks ago. He was interesting to me because his writing was a part of my political awakening about conservatism and recognizing that I am at my core a conservative. And then he lived as a gay married man, and now he is very against homosexuality. And he was someone who has spoken about in the past having been molested when he was younger and was involved in a big scandal because he really said the wrong thing trying to justify what happened to him when he was a kid, and apologized for that. I wanted to speak to him about everything that's happening in this world, and one of the things that we were discussing was how we also got away from things like speaking about the trans stuff is easy. But there was also an intentional, I think, mythology that was established about homosexuality throughout the 90s that we kind of need to have that discussion again, like speaking about homosexuality, speaking about Emmanuel Macron and Justin Trudeau and Zelensky, and why we have a society that almost insists on it, a society that kind of hates heteronormativity, as they term it, heteronormativity, or something that could also be described as natural order, men and women coming together to procreate. Why there has been this rampant attack on that. They want everyone to be either LGBTQIA+, add initials, anything but the natural order. And it was a really interesting conversation, I think a difficult conversation for people to listen to that are not accustomed to speaking about homosexuality at a deeper level. I think you're really going to appreciate that conversation tomorrow. So definitely stay tuned for that. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it. Like I said, it's a brave conversation, if anything else, because it's not something that people are, like me, grew up in the 90s, and now we're at a place, we used to call everything gay, and now you're at a place where, like, you can't even say the word gay in a way that sounds derogatory, like everything is taken gay, or else it shows that you're a homophobe. That's intentional. That has been intentional. So we'll get to all of that. Anyways, let me see if we have any more people that have commented. Nope, I think that is it, you guys. Thank you so much. Monday, tomorrow, we'll have Milo. Monday will be beginning of Becoming Brigitte Season 2. Today was really just kind of a preview for that. Send me everything about the Stanford experiment. Like, do not stop, okay? And also to my book club people, I'm so sorry. I was just not in a good place, and also I was just so sick. So we will have the book club on Tuesday, and I will see all of you guys then.
orange flames lick the velvet drapes, and screams pierce the winter air. By dawn on December 26, 1853, the Whitmore plantation house would be nothing but smoking timber and ash. This is the story of how one girl's hunger for justice consumed an entire family on the holiest night of the year. The bitter wind whistled through bare tobacco fields, carrying the scent of wood smoke and fresh snow across the Virginia countryside. Inside the Grand Manor, crystal glasses clinked with imported wine, while silk rustled against polished mahogany. But in the quarters behind the house, where enslaved families huddled around dying embers, the texture of rough wool blankets provided little warmth against walls that leaked winter through every crack. 18-year-old Celia had watched this same scene unfold every Christmas Eve for as long as she could remember. Through frost-covered windows, she observed the Whitmore family feast on roasted goose, glazed ham, and delicate pastries, while her own stomach cramped with emptiness. Her mother, Sarah, worked the plantation kitchens, preparing elaborate meals she would never taste. The Whitmore estate sprawled across 2,000 acres of prime Virginia soil, purchased with tobacco profits and maintained through the labor of 67 enslaved souls. Master Edmund Whitmore had inherited the property from his father, along with what he considered the natural order of things. His wife, Margaret, presided over the household with the delicate authority of Southern aristocracy. Their 3 children, Edmund Jr., aged 15,
I'm gonna put this in the oven right now.
and little Thomas, only 8, had never known hunger, cold, nor want. But Celia knew all 3 intimately. Born into bondage, she had learned early that survival meant swallowing rage, along with whatever scraps fell from the master's table. Her mother taught her to keep her eyes down, her voice soft, her movements careful. The nail that sticks up gets hammered down, Sarah whispered during those cold winter nights. Bide your time, child. Bide your time. Yet as Celia grew older, time felt like an enemy rather than an ally. Each passing season brought new cruelties, new humiliations. She watched her childhood friend Marcus sold away to a cotton plantation in Georgia. She saw her mother's hands crack and bleed from endless hours over hot stoves and icy wash basins. She felt the weight of Master Edmund's gaze lingering too long when she cleaned the main house. The winter of 1852 had been particularly harsh. The tobacco crop failed due to early frost, and Master Edmund's response was to cut rations for the enslaved workers while maintaining the lavish lifestyle his family had always enjoyed. Celia watched her mother grow thinner, watched the old folks in the quarters cough until they spat blood, watched children cry themselves to sleep from hunger. Through it all, the Whitmores dined on imported delicacies and planned elaborate entertainments. On Christmas Eve, 1853, the contrast reached its breaking point. As snow began to fall, covering the plantation in deceptive beauty, Margaret Whitmore hosted her annual Christmas soiree. Neighboring plantation owners arrived with gilded carriages, their wives draped in furs and jewels. The house blazed with candlelight from every window, while laughter and music spilled into the night. Celia served at that party, carrying silver trays of delicate canapes, refilling crystal goblets with French champagne. Her stomach growled audibly as she watched guests push aside plates, still heavy with food. When young Thomas Whitmore complained that he was too full for another bite before abandoning a plate of honey cakes, something inside Celia's chest twisted tight as a noose. The final straw came near midnight. As Celia cleared the dining room, she discovered a conversation between Master Edmund and his overseer, Jacob Mills. They spoke in low voices near the fireplace, assuming the enslaved girl was deaf to their words. The winter stores are running lower than expected, Mills reported, his weathered face grim in the firelight. We'll need to cut rations again come January. Master Edmund swirled his brandy thoughtfully. The house accounts must be maintained first, naturally. Reduce their portions by another third if necessary. Fire burns everything equally. Mills nodded. What about the sick ones? Old Samuel's been coughing blood for weeks. Mary's youngest is looking mighty peaked. The week will be called by winter's end. Edmund replied with the casual indifference of a man discussing livestock. It's nature's way. The strong survive, and the plantation benefits from reduced expenditure. Celia's hand trembled as she lifted a silver serving dish. Reduced expenditure. Her people were dying, and these men spoke of it like a business calculation. As the guests departed and the family retired to their warm bedrooms, Celia remained in the kitchen, ostensibly cleaning, but actually planning. The great house grew quiet, except for the settling of timber and the distant sound of wind through trees. Even her mother had finally collapsed into exhausted sleep in the servants' quarters. But sleep would not come for Celia that night. She thought of Marcus, sold away like a piece of furniture. She thought of little Samuel in the quarters, whose coughing fit sounded like drowning. She thought of her mother's hands, permanently stained from years of service to people who saw her as less than human. She thought of Master Edmund's words about culling the weak. The house held so many beautiful, flammable things. Silk curtains imported from France. Mahogany furniture polished to a mirror shine. Persian rugs worth more than most enslaved people would earn in several lifetimes of freedom they would never see. As the grandfather clock in the foyer chimed 12:30 a.m., Celia made her decision. She lifted a lit candle from the kitchen table, its flame dancing in the darkness. Her bare feet moved silently across cold marble floors as she climbed the servants' staircase to the main house. What drives a person past the point of fear, past the point of self-preservation? The flame waited in her hand, like a prayer and a curse combined, ready to write justice in smoke and ash across the Virginia sky. But would she have the courage to light the match that would change everything? The candle flame wavered as Celia stepped into the main parlor, casting dancing shadows across portraits of dead Whitmores who had built their legacy on human suffering. Tonight, their painted eyes would witness the end of that legacy. This single moment would determine whether generations of cruelty would continue unchallenged or be answered with fire. The grandfather clock's pendulum swung with mechanical precision, marking each second that brought Celia closer to a choice that could never be undone. The parlor smelled of lingering cigar smoke and expensive perfume, while thick Persian rugs muffled her footsteps. French silk curtains hung like funeral shrouds, heavy and still in the windless night. Celia moved through the room she had cleaned countless times, seeing it now with different eyes. Every ornament represented money that could have fed her people. Every piece of furniture cost more than most enslaved families would see in a lifetime. The massive fireplace, cold now except for dying embers, was framed by imported marble that Master Edmund had bragged cost more than some men's houses. She approached the window where the gorgeous curtains hung, the golden threads catching the candlelight. The fabric felt soft as water between her fingers, softer than any cloth that had ever touched her skin. Master Edmund had ordered these curtains from Paris, she remembered, paying more for window dressing than he spent feeding his entire enslaved workforce in a month. A sudden creak from upstairs froze her in place. Footsteps crossed the ceiling above. Someone was awake. Celia held her breath, counting heartbeats until the sound faded. Probably Master Edmund visiting his private study, where he kept his account books and his collection of rare liquors. Those account books told the real story of the Whitmore plantation. Celia had glimpsed them while cleaning, pages filled with calculations that reduced human beings to numbers: purchase price, maintenance costs, expected years of service, replacement value. Her own name appeared in those ledgers, listed between a plow horse and a butter churn. The candle wax dripped onto her wrist, the brief burn focusing her resolve. She lifted the flame toward the curtain's edge, but memories flooded back, threatening to drown her courage. She remembered the stories her mother told of other enslaved people who had fought back. Their punishments were whispered about in the quarters, like ghost stories. Marcus Williams, who had struck an overseer in Georgia, hanged from a tree while his family was forced to watch. Sarah Chen, who had poisoned a master's food in South Carolina, burned alive in the town square as an example to others. The fate of rebels was always the same: death by torture, designed to terrify any others who might consider resistance. Yet as Celia stood there, she realized something that changed everything. She was already dying. They all were. Master Edmund's casual comment about culling the weak had made that clear. The slow starvation, the brutal working conditions, the complete dehumanization, any teen max. This was death by degrees, stretched out over years instead of hours. At least fire would be quick. At least fire would be fair. She touched the flame to the curtain's hem. The silk caught immediately, orange tongues racing up the expensive fabric with hungry enthusiasm. The fire spread faster than she had expected, consuming the golden threads and racing toward the ceiling moldings. A room filled with acrid smoke as flames leaped from the curtains to a nearby tapestry depicting some romantic European landscape. Celia watched, mesmerized, as fire devoured images of pastoral scenes that had never known the reality of human bondage. Smoke means freedom cannot be ignored. The fire's appetite proved voracious. Within minutes, it had spread to the mahogany bookshelf, consuming leather-bound volumes of poetry and philosophy that spoke of human dignity while their owner practiced human slavery. The Persian rug began to smolder, filling the air with the scent of burning wool and expensive dyes. Celia moved to the next room, then the next. Each space told the same story of wealth built on suffering, luxury purchased with lives. In the dining room, she tipped her candle to the lace tablecloth, where she had served so many meals she could never taste. The fine linen caught like tinder, spreading flames across the polished table, where Master Edmund had casually discussed reducing food rations for the enslaved. The kitchen proved even more satisfying. Here, where her mother's hands had bled, preparing feast after feast for people who saw her as livestock. Celia lit the window treatments, the wooden spice racks, the cloth-covered bread baskets. Fire consumed the heart of the house's domestic operations, the engine of its hospitality and comfort. As she climbed the servants' staircase toward the second floor, smoke began to thicken the air. The house's timber construction, seasoned by decades of Virginia humidity, fed the flames eagerly. What had taken generations to build would be destroyed in hours. The family bedrooms lay ahead, doors closed against the growing heat and smoke. Behind those doors, the women slept peacefully in their imported silk pajamas, beneath covers studded with the finest goose down, unaware that judgment was rising through the floorboards. Master Edmund's study occupied the corner room, its windows facing the slave quarters. From here, he could watch his property, both land and human, while conducting the business that had made him rich. His massive desk held not just account books, but correspondence with other plantation owners, sharing advice on managing enslaved populations, discussing breeding programs, calculating profit margins from human misery. Celia set those papers ablaze first. Let his business burn before his body. Let his profits turn to ash before his pride. The flames consumed records of slave purchases, breeding schedules, punishment logs, and correspondence about the Negro problem with other planters. The heat was becoming intense now. Sweat poured down Celia's face as she moved from room to room, spreading fire with methodical precision. She could hear the flames roaring below, consuming the main floor with increasing fury. The house's structure began to groan and crack as support beams weakened. Soon, the smoke would wake the family. Soon, they would discover that their world was ending, as surely as they had ended so many others. They would face the same terror, the same helplessness, the same desperate struggle for survival that they had inflicted on countless human beings. But would they understand in those final moments that this was justice rather than mere revenge? The answer lay waiting in the as smoke poured under her bedroom door like a dark river seeking the sea. The sound that followed, running footsteps, shouted commands, children crying, would be the last voices the Whitmore family would ever raise.
If you've got a dry scalp, I have the answer. No, 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 no. We need a dry scalp revolution. And that's Head & Shoulders Derma X Pro. With ceramide complex to lock in moisture, giving you flake-free and moisturized scalp for up to 72 hours. Moisturized like a pro. I love it. This one's mine. Get your own.
When you have a Pixel 10, you make
Yay, this is ready. And look at it, guys, it's ready.
invented for another century, failing to warn the sleeping family. Instead, it was the stench of their burning possessions that finally roused them from dreams of continued prosperity. The floorboards beneath their feet grew hot as flames consumed the supporting structure below, while thick smoke made each breath a struggle for survival. Master Edmund was the first to understand the full scope of the disaster. He burst from his study to find the hallway choked with smoke, paint glistening on the walls as fire climbed to the first floor. His silk nightgown, worth more than most people's yearly wages, was already singed from the intense heat. Margaret, children, the house is burning. His voice cracked with panic as he counted on bedroom doors. The man who had commanded 67 human beings with absolute authority now found himself powerless against the most democratic of forces. Fire consuming master and slave alike. Young Catherine emerged first, her delicate nightdress torn as she stumbled through smoke that burned her eyes and throat. At 13, she had lived her entire life surrounded by luxury, protected from every hardship by her family's wealth and social position. Now she faced something that recognized neither class nor privilege. Edmund Jr. followed, carrying 8-year-old Thomas in his arms. The youngest Whitmore child coughed violently, his small body racked by smoke inhalation. The boy who had complained about being too full at dinner just hours earlier now gasped desperately for clean air that no amount of money could buy. Margaret appeared last, her elaborate nighttime beauty routine abandoned as she clutched a jewelry box, the instinct to save valuables overriding maternal concern. Her perfectly arranged hair, maintained by enslaved women who styled it daily, now hung in disheveled strands across her soot-stained face. The servant stares, and he commanded, though his voice held none of its usual authority. They go down the back way, the one who reached the narrow staircase that Celia had climbed with her candle. They found it already consumed by flames. The wooden steps cracked and collapsed as they watched, sending up showers of sparks that ignited Margaret's silk robe. She beat at the flames desperately, her jewelry box clattering to the floor as precious gems scattered across burning floorboards. Terror has no social hierarchy. The main staircase offered their last hope of escape, but as the family rushed toward the grand foyer, they discovered that fire had claimed that route as well. The mahogany banister, polished weakly by enslaved hands, now blazed like a torch. The crystal chandelier that had illuminated so many elegant dinner parties swayed dangerously as heat weakened the ceiling supports. They were trapped on the second floor of a burning house, surrounded by the very luxuries that had defined their superiority. The imported wallpaper curled and blackened around them. The Turkish carpet smoldered beneath their feet. Everything beautiful, everything expensive, a silver candlestick, but the imported paintings were too thick to break easily. Meanwhile, in the quarters behind the burning house, the enslaved community were waiting for the smell of smoke and the glow of flames against the night sky. Some ran toward the house, their instinct to help overriding years of abuse. Others stood frozen, watching their oppressors roll burn with emotions too complex to name. Sarah found herself among those who hesitated. Her daughter was nowhere to be seen, but the timing was too convenient to be coincidental. As she watched flames consume the house where she had labored for over 20 years, and her hands had bled preparing meals she could never taste, where her humanity had been denied daily, she felt something she had never experienced before. The sensation of watching justice served hot. Where's Simon? Asked Thomas, an elderly enslaved man who had known 3 generations of Whitmores. Anyone seen that girl tonight? The question hung in the air, like smoke. Some suspected, but none spoke their thoughts aloud. If Celia had done this thing, she had done what every one of them had dreamed of doing, but never dared attempt. Back in the house, the Whitmore family's desperation grew as escape routes disappeared. The heat was becoming unbearable, the smoke thicker with each passing minute. Young Thomas had stopped coughing and lay motionless in his brother's arms. The 8-year-old boy who would never grow up to inherit slaves had become the first victim of fire's judgment. Margaret knelt beside her youngest son's still form, her perfectly manicured hands, maintained by enslaved women who mixed her lotions and filed her nails, now useless to save her child. The woman who had presided over dinner parties where the servant problem was discussed, like a business matter, now faced a problem that no amount of social grace could solve. Edmund continued his futile attempts to break the windows, while his world literally burned around him. The man who had spoken casually
Yeah.
now found himself among those who
Yeah. Yeah. I'm good. Yeah, I'm good, please. Thank you. Oh, you can come in normally now. Oh, yeah, because me, I said that you don't used to call normally, but I'm just calling you with WhatsApp. Okay. Okay, are you? Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm good, please. Yeah. Hello guys, please, today there's a new video that came out on the channel. As you can see, I've got the meat pie, the Nigerian meat pie. You guys, I know you're enjoying seeing this. It's looking golden crisp. And guys, remember to watch this video. Please subscribe, watch this video on the PDSG TV. We have so many vlogs coming out. Subscribe. And if you like what you're seeing here, because it's actually, I have like, it should be 2 trays. So there is this one in the oven that I've just opened out. I've just opened this one not too long ago, but this one is cooling down, and then there is one here. But I'll show you the one that's in here. I've put them in here, and then the other tray in the oven. Guys, remember to subscribe, like, share, donate to this channel if you're enjoying seeing this. And yeah, so, and it's good having you guys here. Where are you watching from Africa, Asia, Europe, America? Where are you watching from? Let's connect, let's do this. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you once more for the likes, for joining. And remember to also subscribe to see more of this, because as you can see, if you've seen my previous live, I do a lot of this stuff like baking. I love to bake. I love to prepare Nigerian delicacies. So this is one of the ultimate Nigerian snack. If you guys have never tried this, you should rewatch this live and see how it's being done. And I have so many of these lives on the channel, like how do we make the Nigerian meat pie. And also, one thing I think you guys should also do is watch the new video. There's a new video on the PDSG TV that was released today. It got uploaded today. And donate to this live if you have enjoyed watching me bake, because I love to bake. Donate to this live as well. And thank you so much for the ones that keep joining. Yeah, and I hope you guys are having a lovely evening.
As dawn approached, what
Thank you
remained
so
of
much
the
guys for
Rudy
watching,
plantation house
and I will be
resembled
signing
nothing
out
so
and I will
much
show you
as the
guys
burned
coming back
remains of a
tomorrow.
massive
Thank you
funeral
so
pyre.
much. Bye.